They lowered it from the sky, buried it, and pretended it didn't exist. Despite the show's reputation for pushing boundaries, viewers found one episode of Married with Children to be excessive. It was kept under wraps for decades, never shown or distributed. It has returned. Why was this episode so controversial that it couldn't have aired in the 90s? How did it become so out of hand that not even the network could handle it? It was this episode that they attempted to delete. One that stretched the bounds of TV then and still raises eyebrows now. This is the part they were trying to hide from you. The comedy that defied convention. Clean family comedies were all the rage in the United States in the late 80s. Family Ties, Full House, and The Cosby Show all depicted happy, well-adjusted families dealing with small problems that were neatly remedied in 22 minutes. Audiences had grown accustomed to the formula, but many were starting to grow bored with it. Introducing Married with Children, a delightfully rebellious sitcom that accomplished far more than just shatter convention. It set it ablaze, gave spectators something new, and danced on the ashes. Married with Children, which premiered in 1987 on Fox, a network that was just starting out, completely turned the American sitcom genre on its head. Attempting to empathize with his children was not something Al Bundy did as a father. He resented his work, despised his marriage, and fantasized about the life he had never experienced. He was a bitter shoe salesman. Peg wasn't your typical devoted homemaker. She was a serial TV watcher who enjoyed going on shopping sprees more than anything else in life, rarely cooked, and never cleaned. Kelly and Bud, their children, weren't cute little mischief makers. Their egotism, cunning, and arrogance were on full display. And that was the whole idea. In its pilot, Married with Children made it very obvious that it was not going to be a program about perfect families, but rather about dysfunction, disillusionment, and a level of raw honesty that had never been seen in primetime comedy before. Fat jokes, dirty jokes, poverty jokes, and an uncompromising tone that forced audiences to laugh at things polite society pretended not to see were the only things that were present, without any moments of soothing piano music or moral signs at the conclusion. Everyone laughed heartily. In a matter of hours, the show had gone viral. For many Americans, it became an almost tangible embodiment of cynical working-class humor. It hit close to home when Al Bundy went on rants about his high school football one-minute glory and his unhappy clients. It was a form of subversion when Peg refused to conform to the stereotype of a submissive housewife. Even if they're exaggerated, Bud's dirty jokes and Kelly's carefree lack of knowledge are surprisingly convincing. The fact that they made fun of everyone, neighbors, children, men, women, and especially themselves, was their strongest suit, and it added a lot of charm to the show. Although Married with Children was highly acclaimed, its controversial nature stems from the same incisive nature that made it so controversial. It was panned by critics for being careless and naive. A number of religious organizations voiced their disapproval. Lawmakers cited it as an example of a society that has lost its cultural heritage. Internet censors? They were constantly vigilant. Scripts frequently received flags. A lot of jokes were changed. SEQ trim. Married couples with children continued to test the limits weekly. However, the program concealed an underlying criticism, a silent gauge. A forbidden guild line protected by anarchy in the background. Insinuations and even explicit suggestions regarding hooking up might be made by them. On the other hand, plot points run the danger of being axed if they became too honest, too raw, or too awkward. The screenplay leak sparked widespread indignation because it revealed more than just jokes. That program they flat out refused to air. Until We Meet in Court was the title of the episode. It was supposed to air in 1989 and was fully produced during Married with Children's third season. The actors and crew had no clue it would be more outlandish than the rest of the series. It was pretty much the usual fare, some hooking up, some controversy, some extremely offensive jokes, and lots of Bundy animosity. Something, though, shifted the scales this time. Plus, red flags went up the moment the show reached Fox's upper management. On paper, the plot seemed to be your standard Bundy adventure. Al and Peg book a room at a seedy motel in an effort to liven up their dull relationship. They had no idea that the motel has covert cameras that record all of their visitors. They find out later that someone may have watched and shared the recording of their time together without their knowledge or permission. They opt to sue the hotel, as is typical of the Bundy family. When they find that they aren't the only ones who have been victimized, however, they experience even more shame rather than justice. They were joined at the motel by their neighbors, the Rhodes, who were also recorded. Even die-hard fans of Married with Children will cringe at the embarrassing jokes and brutal testimonies in this courtroom drama. Intimate privacy and exploitation are themes that run throughout the show, but it doesn't pretend not to touch them. From that point on, it's just pure comedy. Still, this one was dangerously near to going too far for the period. Being covertly videotaped while making love was more than just titillating. There were several ethical and legal considerations. An era long ago, when every hotel had banners proclaiming surveillance, far before the advent of social media and viral leaks, the narrative struck a chord. It was unusual for sitcom writers to touch on themes like consent, voyeurism, or public exposure. There was a change. No matter the sitcom, the husband would always put his customers down, even when Peg joked about turning off AI. Fox had only been in operation for a short time as a network, and it was still attempting to gain acceptance among the more established groups of broadcasters. Its advertising-supported, edgy countercultural image served as the foundation of its brand. There was a landmine in this episode. Several ad buyers were uneasy about the topic, according to internal memos. It appeared too hazardous to put ads next to jokes about the illicit private videos. The networks certainly couldn't afford to take any chances back then. To all appearances, this was a graveyard-aged episode. Nobody said a word. No statement was made. Then it disappeared. It was absent from American television for over a decade, and it was never part of a streaming roster, home media release, or syndication. Speculation persisted for quite some time. Even after hearing rumors about the lost episode, fans were unable to locate it. It was never finished, according to some. Some thought it had been leveled. However, in actuality, the episode had concluded. Then it disappears. The jokes may seem mild now, but in 1989 they were not only edgy, they were downright dangerous. The reason being that it dealt with a topic that was too near to actual fears, rather than condoning indecency. Having your private life filmed with your permission, having your privacy invaded. It wasn't merely the content that frightened the network. It was the potential outcome had they displayed it. A cultural clash engulfs a sitcom. Angry viewers who perceived Married with Children as an indication of America's cultural decline, moral crusaders, and watchdog groups turned Married with Children into a battlefield by 1989. Already, the show was overstepping boundaries with its sexist insinuation, vulgar comedy, and unrepentant cynicism. However, the episode would have been doomed had it not been for one irate viewer's letter, which set off a massive public campaign. A homemaker and mother of 4 from Michigan named Terry Ricolta happened to stumble across an episode as her children were watching TV. "I will meet with you in court." The incident in question was unequal. The Bundys' signature blend of sexual jokes and irreverent banter was on full display in this new episode. What Ricolta witnessed, however, sickened her. She thought the show was poisoning young viewers' minds, glorifying immorality, and weakening traditional family values. She went to war instead of merely changing the channel. Initiating a grassroots boycott movement, Ricolta penned emails to Fox's sponsors, requesting that they remove advertisements featuring married couples with children. Its usefulness was unexpected. In response to her effort, major companies like Kellogg's and Coca-Cola removed their advertisements from the show. The national media quickly covered the outcry. Her crusade was covered by television news programs, and conservative critics even gave her accolades. What began as an individual's fury transformed into a societal movement that attacked married couples with children and the fundamental idea of what television could be. Fox was taken aback all of a sudden. Since it was still up against ABC, NBC, and CBS, the network was portrayed as daring, innovative, and defiant. Fox also needed to show marketers that it was profitable noise, not only background noise. It would be disastrous for the network's bottom line if a big scandal portrayed this announcement as more filth peddlers. The executives were in a state of extreme anxiety. With the plot revolving on a couple who are covertly caught having intimate, "I'll See You in Court" comes into play. They certainly do not want to be in possession of this type of explosive device. The word irony is quite appropriate. Season 3 of Married with Children had begun, and there were plenty of racy episodes from earlier seasons to choose from. Al cracked several funny jokes on necrophilia. Peg was very forthright about her sexual interests. Kelly had been depicted as the epitome of a naive blonde, and there were episodes that revolved around her being sexualized. This particular moment in 1989, however, hit differently than others in the wake of public outcry, moral panic, and a very delicate subject. Broadcasting of "I'll See You in Court" was also supposed to take place during this time. Before Raculta's boycott became public knowledge, filming had already begun and the episode had been deposited into Slate. There was an immediate re-evaluation of every cool risk. Instead of wondering if it would be humorous, we should be thinking, will we get sued over this? That is, until it convinces another sponsor to back out. Fox became very guarded due to the plot's ambiguity in relation to the law, non-consensual filming, sexual content, and potential consequences in court. Subtly, they removed the episode from air. Fox made a calculated but covert decision to hide the episode as public outcry and advertising boycotts intensified. The honest opinions of the actors and staff members. The scene "I'll See You in Court" was merely another installment in the studio's production schedule. They ran through it as a cast. It was blocked by the director. The crew continued as normal, lighting the motel scenes and filming the courtroom humor. They didn't see it as anything more than another day on one of the most ridiculous television shows. However, amidst the mirth, nobody understood that they had captured the most divisive and soon-to-be-buried footage. Part of the Married with Children series. As they reflected on the experience in subsequent interviews, the actors expressed a range of emotions, including bewilderment, humor, and incredulity. Ed O'Neill, who played Al Bundy, expressed his perplexion over the episode's removal at one point. He did, after all, give speeches about women's personal cleanliness, publicly shame his overweight clients, and draw parallels between his personal life and punishment on multiple occasions. Still, the network never batted an eye in any of those instances. Al Bundy's wife, Peg Bundy, was anything but brilliant. According to reports, Katie Segal thought the writing was hilarious and biting. The storyline at the motel, she claimed, was in keeping with the show's racy, uncomfortable, over-the-top, but ultimately harmless, plot points. She thought it was completely ridiculous that Al and Peg may end up being included in an unlawful home movie. This, in her opinion, encapsulated the essence of their marriage. Neither was it a heated nor glamorous affair. It was embarrassing, absurd, and awful instead. What really matters in the show? The writers were taken aback when the episode was eliminated by censors. Michael G. Moy, co-creator of the series, documents later in the DVD commentary how the episode went through the typical pre-production clearances without any first red flags or cautions. Terry Raculta's pressure campaign and sponsors' growing fear were the only factors that caused Fox to re-evaluate. Now it seemed that every time the executive department's scripts were being reviewed, a legal dispute would arise. It wasn't the quality that made "I'll See You in Court" a target, rather, it was the fact that it was a legal responsibility disguised as a nasty joke. The episode has become something of a Bundy Bermuda Triangle, with parts shot, edited, and then mysteriously removed, according to some members of the production. It wasn't merely put on hold. It vanished. After a few years had passed, admirers and even some employees began to bring up the fact that it had been destroyed. Some thought it had only been shown in other countries. Stranger still was the truth. The program remained uncut in storage, but it was omitted from rerun packages and home releases on purpose. Fox practically seemed to be hoping that nobody would remember how it had been. Still, there was an underlying assumption among the crew that the show would air. "We anticipated its eventual return," as one unnamed production assistant said during a TV retrospective. "It was too daring, too good to pass up." That was correct. The legend of the lost episode has persisted, albeit it has changed with time. Rumors have been circulating on message boards, spread by fans. While some insisted it had previously only aired in Canada, Others said they had seen a taped version during a late-night extraterrestrial broadcast. Yet, a dreadful shadow has been cast, even if these claims never turned out to be credible. It was so memorable that not even the writers and actors forgot it. It is always brought up in interviews with the cast and at reunions. Since controversial topics are now considered mainstream on television, arguments have given way to simple curiosity. Therefore, was its airing necessary? Is substituted by the question, why didn't it not? The sexually explicit content of modern sitcoms and cable dramas makes I'll See You in Court look like a child's play. Neither the romance nor the danger nor the glamour of the Alan Pegg story were there. The fact that it was tragic, hopeless, and absurd just added to its authenticity. That was unsettling for the executives who were concerned about it in 1989. Contrarily, one author refused to let it go. Their covert effort paid off years later when the incident was rediscovered. Resurfacing on cable is the secret. The fandom kept quiet about I'll See You in Court for more than 10 years. As far back as the viewers of Married with Children can remember, there was an urban legend. Nothing has been proven to confirm the existence of this piece of sitcom mythology. There has never been an official DVD box set that featured it. The rerun marathons on TV Land did not include it. In the episode guidelines, it wasn't mentioned. For younger viewers, it felt like a ghost episode. It went unnoticed in the late 1980s unless you were paying great attention. But things altered drastically in 2002. Unannounced and without much pomp and circumstance, FX quietly took over the syndication rights to the entire Married with Children library. One show that longtime viewers could tell was odd was aired during a weekday afternoon. I Will Encounter You in a Court of Law. The entire restricted episode was broadcasted for the first time in U.S. television history. Audiences were taken aback. For some, the long-ago rumor of an enigmatic missing episode finally came to fruition. While social media was in its early stages, early online discussion groups saw explosive growth. Fan sites have threads. Many were expressing their thoughts and opinions by paraphrasing the sentences and wondering if anyone else had seen that. Could it have been real? Indeed, that's right. The long-lost episode would now be available to watch again on FX. It was unexpectedly aired uncut. The content was unrestricted. There was no line removal. Scenes unseen. Unfiltered and unapologetic, it was the first episode. Immediate feedback was divided. Many were overjoyed. They got exactly what they anticipated from the show. During Married with Children's prime, it was hilariously crude-cutting satire like this. Some were leery, though. Things like voyeurism, sexual privacy, and exploitation lawsuits would have been unsettling even in the early 2000s. Weirdly, some people thought the show had become even amusing as time had passed, while others questioned whether the weight had made it more difficult to absorb. Though they may have differing views on the subject matter, almost everyone there could agree on one point. Undoubtedly, it was significant. It represented a bygone era when television risked entering executive-unfriendly territory. Not because they were filthy or gratuitous, but because they unnerved the viewers. It maintained its comic tone while shedding attention on the harrowing reality of how effortless it is to make someone feel like a punchline and how quickly one's dignity can be taken away. FX did not give the episode a second thought, doing nothing to promote it or even provide an explanation in a press release. Nonetheless, the airing of the show did indicate a change in network executives' stances on censoring. There was less bureaucracy involved, which was a relief for cable compared to broadcast. Comedy shows like Nip Tuck, South Park, and The Sopranos were already rubbing up against the risky but profitable margins. Finally, it was reasonable to expect to see you in court. However, it started to close the gap with the boundaries of what could be accepted. However, further episodes would not be renewed. Programming adjustments and contract talks, not public uproar, led to its re-airing after a few episodes. But the renewed interest from the new airing sparked a concerted campaign to revive it permanently. The inclusion of the episode in the official DVD collection was much requested. Early fan sites began to feature petition threads. In retrospectives, entertainment writers lamented the story. During reunions and interviews, the cast was asked about it again. There was undeniable curiosity, and the strain was building. Now more than ever, the episode stood as a symbol of the changes that had taken place in culture, the fear that networks once had to air controversial content, and the growing number of voices demanding that controversial issues be addressed head-on rather than buried in television history. The commercial considerations for including the episode in future collections were started by Sony Pictures Television, the program's distributor. This matter, however, was no longer ethical, it was plainly legal. Are disclaimers really required? Should any talent be notified? Did advertising in foreign markets have any drawbacks? Decades passed with the talks continuing. However, the true re-release, which would alter everything, was still to come, something no one had anticipated. Why it's making a triumphant return in the year 2025. When is the best time? Why is I'll See You in Court finally receiving some attention after being silent for over 30 years? What gives? Sony Pictures Television has been completely mum about it all this time, and now they're celebrating an episode they buried. A single truth lies at the heart of the multifaceted solution. Television has evolved with the world. During the 80s and 90s, broadcast networks such as Fox were heavily regulated. Ads had a lot of sway, the FCC had stringent regulations, and public outcry could ruin a whole series. It was already considered risky to be married with children back then. Using sexual innuendo in every episode and pushing the limits of decency while attacking traditional family structures. The network was unprepared when it ventured into controversial subjects like sexual consent and invasions of privacy, which are still highly debated in popular culture. As a result, censorship became the norm. When May 2025 rolls around, you won't have a clue. To begin with, the entire environment turned into something completely alien. After that, companies like Netflix, Amazon Video, If Mercury, and Max essentially ran the show. Since it's more likely to sell, they probably show more realistic and unapologetic depictions of things like sexuality, brutality, psychological trauma, and sexual violence, but they probably also show Euphoria, The Boys, and Black Mirror. The moral complexity of storytelling is now more appealing to these more discerning audiences than the clarity of morality was in the past. This means that prestige streaming dramas and satire comedies are making more money than TV ever has before. It's no longer startling that I'll See You in Court. It is very important now. As the show progresses, it shows how widespread surveillance has become, how topics like cyberbullying and revenge porn dominate news coverage, and how fast any concept of privacy is lost. The same ideas that made the episode so controversial in 1989 are still very much with us. Sony anticipated this shift. It began making plans behind the scenes to enable a more sophisticated relaunch. One that aims to change its meaning rather than just appeal to die-hard supporters. Once shamed for its explicit nature, it is today cherished as a cultural relic. Recognition of the tremendous progress we have made throughout history. Whereas obscene content is seldom the target of suppression but rather unsettling facts. The choice to remaster it originated from this. Too Hot for Prime Time, a collection of banned, deleted, or long-buried episodes from several renowned shows, will be available digitally soon. But I Will See You in Court is going to be the collection's crown jewel. It has been restored, enhanced to high definition, and accompanied with original comments from the creators and cast who are still alive. Educated dives into the episode's topic are also covered in a short documentary that is part of the package. What the cast really believed about remaining silent during the Raculta controversy and how it affected their early Fox years. The timing couldn't be better. Nowadays, viewers are absolutely enthralled by lost media. There are YouTube channels, Reddit threads, and even podcasts dedicated to finding deleted sequences, pilots, and missing sitcom episodes, as well as films that were never aired. Its voracious thirst for forbidden sites is unprecedented, and nothing like it has ever existed. Returning to I'll See You in Court is a marketing opportunity and a nostalgic win for traditional finance. When Sony releases an episode, it's not for repeat viewings. Their long-suppressed entertainment is being unearthed and is suddenly gaining a lot of importance. The program can thus become entangled in a societal dialogue surrounding censorship in this way.